too. Yeah, welcome back to Squawk Box. In the headlines this morning, investors awaiting several key economic reports this morning. The Labor Department is out with its jobless claims, the weekly number that we see. That's about an hour from now. It's an important number. Economists look for a slight drop, very slight, to 370,000. Also out this morning, July figures for personal income and spending. Economists see income rising 0.3%, with spending up 0.4%. And fewer foreclosure homes are being sold, but at higher prices. The value of homes in some stage of foreclosure accounted for 23% of total sales during the second quarter, and RealtyTrack says that compares to 19% a year ago. However, the raw number of foreclosure homes sold was down 22% from a year earlier. And that claims number, you know, we're back to, it's a week from tomorrow again?
Yeah, I know, for the jobs number.
Right, and it was a 31-day month, wasn't it? January, February, March,
April,
August
May,
is
June,
31.
July.
You do your knuckles?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But then I always get confused with
Well, no, you go over and then you come back.
Right. Oh, no, I do two hands together.
Oh, well, that's too hard.
Anyway, Paul Ryan telling his party and the nation that Mitt Romney will make bold and difficult decisions, and he is blaming President Obama for the nation's current economic woes.
A presidency that began with such anticipation now comes to such a disappointing close. It began with a financial crisis. It ends with a job crisis. It began with a housing crisis they alone didn't cause. It ends with a housing crisis they didn't correct.
Joining us now is Wyoming Senator John Barrasso. And Senator, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Becky.
You know, we have talked to people who were in the room last night, and they said there is no doubt that this electrified that room. This is exactly what the people who are there want to hear. And I guess the question is, do you think that this is a message that can pull in some of those independent voters that the campaign will need to be elected in November?
Oh, absolutely. And number one is anyone who heard Paul Ryan last night knows that Mitt Romney made the right choice in this first major decision about who should be vice president of the United States. Paul Ryan was absolutely excellent. And, you know, when people think about the upcoming election, they think about what it means for themselves and their family and the future for their kids and for a better future. And this is the right team to do it.
What do you think has been the most important points that they've put out to this point, and what would you like to hear more of?
Well, you know, you heard about opportunity for the young and security for the old, which is what Paul Ryan talked about last night. But we're going to hear tonight from Mitt Romney, who is going to show the American people that they can trust him, they can be comfortable with him and confident in his leadership. And that's what we're looking for, is who can help us over the next 4 years really be our best individuals and for the better future for our country. That's what folks are focused on, their own lives in terms of their own jobs, as well as the economy and the debt and the spending and a future for America. And they have two choices. And the one, Mitt Romney, is the one that's going to lead to the prosperity. And we've seen the failures of this Obama administration. They've had 4 years. They've added $5 trillion to the debt. And you know the numbers. We still have 23 million Americans who are either unemployed or underemployed. They've taken $700 billion away from our seniors on Medicare, not to strengthen Medicare, but to pay for Obamacare. And we have a debt of almost $16 trillion. That's not the right course for our country.
Explain that, Senator. It's Joker. You're from Wyoming. Were you what kind of doctor are you? And in Wyoming, do you have to be like a country doctor? You got to drive. Like, there's nobody living there, I don't think, except in the ski resorts. Do you have to drive? You have to drive like 40 miles to treat someone in their home with that little black bag.
500,000 people.
As you know, Joe, we have 500,000 wonderful folks in Wyoming.
State, Senator.
High altitude, low multitude, the equality state. We balance our budget every year. We live within our means.
I heard you guys when you were actually giving your delegates. But what you just said about Medicare. That's the Republican side, and that's the argument that they're both 700 plus billion in cuts. One says that it's to bolster Medicare. That's what the Republicans say, and they say that the 700 that the president is cutting just to pay for Obamacare. Is there really a difference in the cuts to the average senior citizen?
Well, there's a big difference in terms of a senior's ability to actually get and to see a doctor. You know, the president said if you like what you have, you can keep it. People all across the country know that that's not the case. He promised $2,500 in lower premiums for families across the country. People are seeing their premiums have gone up instead of down. So this president has broken one promise after another as they cram this health care law through Congress in middle of the night votes.
Is there really a difference between the two, the cuts? I mean, to the average senior, it's like they're both cutting Medicare by $800 billion.
Well, there's a big difference because with the president's independent payment advisory board, 15 unelected bureaucrats who are going to decide, which I really view as a rationing board. They're going to decide who can get care and what kind of care they can get. I think it's going to be much harder for our seniors on Medicare to get a doctor to treat them, to find a doctor if their doctor retires. So we're going to see with the dramatic cuts that this president has made to Medicare.
What do the Republicans do with 800?
Well, you know, the Republican plan is a premium support plan. It's a budget that Paul Ryan put forward. It's one that I voted for to strengthen Medicare, because Medicare as it is now, you know, you don't touch it for anybody over the age of 55. We're talking about Medicare so that the promise is there for the next generation, so they can get the care that they need from a doctor that they choose at a lower cost.
John Huntsman here. Good to be with you. We've been to some hot spots together, and I've always enjoyed your company. Let's go to November, and let's just anticipate a Romney administration. Congress is going to play a critically important role in getting things done when you've got that early honeymoon period. We can actually get some things through. If we're to grow as an economy, what are the two most important things that you as a collaborator on Capitol Hill are going to have to focus on in terms of sending the right signals to the marketplace that this country is ready to move forward again?
Yes, Governor, and it's great to be with you again. Obviously, energy, American energy, which is part of our energy security as well as our national security, that comes along with economic growth. You know, if we're developing more energy sources in the United States, that helps people at home in terms of their quality of life and affordable energy. It also helps we're not sending money overseas, and there is actual increased tax revenue that comes into the government when we use U.S. energy supplies. We ought to immediately approve the Keystone XL pipeline, bring that energy into the United States, but we have an opportunity to be a net energy exporter with what we have in terms of natural gas, in terms of uranium, oil, coal, all of those things, and we need it all. But we ought to be focused on energy, and the president's plan and his policies have been those that actually make energy more expensive with his regulations that can continue to come out of the EPA. They're burdensome, they're expensive, they're time-consuming. We need to make it easier and cheaper for the private sector to create jobs, and a lot of that in Congress is going to be dismantling a lot of these regulations also that have come out of this administration over the last couple of years.
Senator, what happens if the president is reelected? Then what is the first order of business come November?
Well, the president will then, in a lame duck session, I think, try to put a number of things through, because I think we're actually going to pick up net Senate seats in the Republican Party. So he's going to try to work through an agenda if he is reelected and try to get a lot done in what would be a very busy lame duck session.
What happens just with the fiscal cliff under either of those scenarios? And we don't know what's going to happen in November, but we do know that the fiscal cliff is coming. Is there going to be a compromise reached to keep us from going over that?
Well, I've continued to support, a grand bargain on these things that have been tried last year and it failed then. We need to prevent the fiscal cliff from occurring. That Patty Murray, who runs the Democrat Senatorial Committee, said, yes, we ought to go over the fiscal cliff. They are threatening our economy with another recession because the Democrats seem to be so fixated on raising taxes. And I just think that's a terrible mistake. You shouldn't raise taxes on anyone at a time like this, Becky, with this economy in such such a poor situation.
All right, Senator, we want to thank you very much for joining us today.
It's crowded out there with all these bankers. Those aren't the kind of people you need in Wyoming, though, are they? I mean, they're Jackson Hole.
If Washington did things more like Wyoming, it'd be a much better country.
Senator, thank you, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Becky.